African American Literature and the Black Aesthetic, an English 244 project by Dominique Montgomery. So today's first point of discussion is going to be basically on African American literature and why I feel it's important, especially for my peers here within college. Um, so I thought it would be best before we actually got into that to actually describe what it is. So Britannica describes it as literature that's rich in expressive subtlety and social insight, offering illuminating assessments of African American identities and history. And the reason why I picked the description of that term, because I'm pretty sure everyone has a good idea of what the words African American and literature mean on an individual level. But together, to me, this gave a pretty good idea as far as what the three meant together. And of course, this is important because if you know African American literature, it helps you as African American know your own history. By knowing where you came from, it really helps you know to know and to find out where you're going. And the best way to do that is to look up certain artists. I mean, authors, people like Alan Locke and Herbert Harrison, your Ann Spencers, your James N. Whitfield, your Sojourner Truth, and Clark McKay really help you as a young individual or someone who's a little older understand who you are and what our ancestors are really trying to tell us through different stories and the hidden messages behind them. So next we'll listen to a poem by Clark McKay.
If we must die, let it not be like hawks, hunted and penned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, making their mock at our accursed lot. If we must die, oh let us nobly die, so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain. Then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us though dead. O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us show us brave, and for their thousand blows deal one death blow. What though before us lies the open grave? Like men, we'll face the murderous, cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying but fighting back.
And the reason why I picked his poems, because to me, one, it gives you good insight as far as well, good words of encouragement to always stand tall. But more importantly, he's a great poet, and historically, whites didn't think that African Americans or blacks in general could not only write poetry but understand it. And his poem is an example and shows you and dispels that myth that we don't have the intellectual level to write poetry, but in fact, you look at Clark McKay, and we do. In fact, we can do it probably better than they can. So that's why I thought it was really important for us to at least hear a poem from a well-known author like a Clark McKay. So going forward, again, we have to know our history to know where we're going. It's really important, and we need to look to the phenomenal artists and authors that we have, so we know exactly who we are and what's expected of us as African Americans going forward. So, is it important to read African American literature? And to me, it is an absolute yes. Reading African American literature is important for a few different reasons. The first one is that Black literature allows us to understand our history as Black people or African Americans within the United States of America, and allows us to understand how we were viewed and treated coming up through the history of this country. Um, it also allows us to see get an idea of Black characters within literature itself. A lot of times, the books that you're fed and you read within the school systems, from kindergarten all the way up through high school, don't really paint a vivid picture of who we are outside of a small portion of slavery that you're taught in history, and that's about it. But it doesn't let you know about the Phyllis Wheatleys and the Langston Hughes, W.E.B., the Bows, and the Alice Walkers, who really speak to us as individuals, as a community, as a people, and let us know who we are. It also helps you to dispel stereotypes that are painted or pushed to us and to the world about who we are. So not only I think it was important to explain to my peers, why it's important, but I also want to get their feedback on why they think or what their thoughts are of um, when it comes to African American literature.
I feel like African American literature and heritage is important. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like reading is reading. All right. I feel like no matter what it is, I feel like reading is reading. Period. Just whatever you want to learn about is what you want to learn about, and I feel like it's on you as a person.
To read African American literature because it's so lacking in the school system from kindergarten to high school. Also because it's not taught at all. Our Black history is not taught through schools, and therefore the education has to come from somewhere. When you think about other minorities, Hispanic heritage, they start with the Mayans and Aztecs, and
yes, I do believe everyone should read upon Black literature, even if you're not African American, because it gives you an insight of what everyone has to go through, and even with your culture and how that all ties into one another.
First question is, do you think it's important to read African American literature and why? I say African American literature explores the issues of freedom and equality denied to blacks in the United States. African American literature also talks about culture, racism, religion, slavery, migration, and many other topics dealing with the black population. I feel like it's important to read because it's
So from the interviews that we've seen today, we can see that there is an understanding of the importance of African American literature in our society today, and how important that is for us as Black people or African Americans here in the United States, to not lose and to reach back and gather that information from Black literature of the past and see exactly what these authors were trying to tell us and why they were trying to convey certain messages to us. We don't want to lose that. And I'm really happy that a lot of individuals that I spoke to had a very good in-depth understanding on why it's important. So next we want to talk about the Black aesthetic, and what it is. So the word aesthetic itself is defined as concern with beauty or the appreciation of beauty. The Black aesthetic is a cultural ideology that developed in America alongside the Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s and promoted Black separatism in the arts. So here's an image of what I feel represented the Black aesthetic in the past. And here are four images that I question you or anyone in public really, do these images represent Black aesthetic? And right now in 2019, unfortunately, I feel like the Black aesthetic is based off of negative stereotypes of Black people. In 2019, the Black aesthetic is mostly viewed through music videos. In these videos, however, you can see that women are displayed as sexual objects to be gained. Sex sells in this industry, and it's at the forefront of the message that they try to push to the communities around us. And unfortunately, these videos are what people think of or what they go to when they want to learn and see what it is to be Black. And that includes people who are all born Black. Men tell a tale of, in order to be defined as success, you have to have all these women around you, you have to have jewelry, a lot of money in your pocket, and be able to flaunt and show out and do certain things that don't necessarily define you or
someone from outside of the culture, obviously. The Black aesthetic to me is what the influence that hip hop culture has had on really pop culture as a whole. So if you look back at Michael Jackson, you even look further back So African Americans started rock, honestly. Started rock, started the blues, and that all fed into what we know nowadays. So all these groups that started, like the Rolling Stones, all these groups that we think are great, all of that was rooted in African American literature, song styles, and then you look at things like hip hop culture now and how that influences pop culture, such as fashion is one. Like ASAP Rocky is a huge figure as far as fashion goes. I'm not involved in that, but I do know.
First question is, what would you define as a black aesthetic group? What the black aesthetic in 2019? And I can say the natural hair movement because I'm a natural girl myself, and I really support that movement because, especially in today's societies, because a lot of jobs in schools, which I don't understand, are not accepting that black girls, black women, black men are able to wear their natural hair.
So, from my perspective, I believe that this right here is an image, or should be one of the images of the black aesthetic. And the reason being because to me it embodies so much of our culture in one thing. It is us at our most simplest form in today's society. Um, you have a young man with his do rag on because he wants his hair to look a certain way, and his lady has hers on as well. Even though normally, normally a black woman has, either a hair, not a hairnet, but she has her silk scarf on or her bonnet on. But she's wearing her do rag just like her man. To me, it's a symbol of support for a man in a world that doesn't accept him for who he is, and vice versa, doesn't accept her either. So to me, this image right here portrays a beautiful image of the black aesthetic in today's society. And that is the end. Thank you.